Hey, what's up? It's Trent. I want to do a trip report on the Utah Cliffs route that I rode in October of 2020. I haven't seen much information on this bikepacking route, so I wanted to share my experiences in hopes that if you are interested in doing this route, that I can provide you a little bit more information that will make your experience much better. Not that mine was bad, but you'll go into it with some knowledge of what to expect and what you will see and places to stop, all that good stuff. So I was coming from Los Angeles, and one of the things that when you're doing destination rides is you would need to park your car somewhere. And I have had some bad experiences with car theft. And so I started using warm showers. And on warm showers, I found a host, and he allowed me to park my car in his driveway for up to, however long I really needed it. I thought the route was going to take me 3 to 4 days. With the specific route that I did, it took me 4 days. And if you are going to do the complete route, I would suspect 4 to 6 days if you want to do it comfortably. Now, I'm not in the best shape. This was my first real multi-day bikepacking trip, and I'm still overweight, so I would not recommend this for your first bikepacking trip like it was for me, but I do highly recommend this route. So day one, I went from St. George to the Dixie National Forest. I believe I did 25 miles the first day, and that was because I got a flat before I even started riding. So that was a huge bummer. So the first part of the route takes you through Red Rock State Park, I think it is. And that's a really pretty ride at the bottom. That's where the Adventure Cycling Association has photos posted of the route where it looks flat. But this part of the route is not flat. It is beautiful. So you kind of go through this bike path through the state park, and then you're spit out onto the road, and it's about a 1,200 foot climb up out of what I would call the St. George Valley and up into the mountains. I had to take a few breaks going up the climb, but nothing to fear. I wish I remembered the grade, but that's a good kicker. That's a good preview of what the rest of this route has. You pass through a town called Vail, and Vail, I was recommended to stop and get a pie at Vail Pies, and I highly recommend that. That is a good treat for doing the first climb. While I was riding it in the afternoon, there was a lot of headwinds, so it was super welcomed to have a nice chocolate pie as a reward. I did try to eat at a pizza shop across the street. They did not have slices available, unfortunately, so you had to order a whole pizza. So if you want some food, order pizza ahead. Now, there's also a gas station across the street from the pie place. They let me fill up my water bottles, and that was super helpful. So continuing out of Vail, you continue up the highway, and then there's a dirt segment around Baker Dam. Now, this is super welcomed to get off-road. It felt very nice to not be next to the traffic, and it was a really nice area. There are a few camp spots around Baker Dam. There's the Baker Dam camping area that I saw on Google Maps. It was a little too early in the day to stay there, and there was also the Homestead Ranch Resort, which would also be a good camping option. They are about $10 to $20 a night. So I didn't stay there. I can't give you much information. But that seems like a pretty good place to stop. You cruise through the city of Central, or town rather. I don't know if you call it a city. And then I ended up camping right at the barrier of the national forest when you start going up into the mountains up towards Pine Valley. I turned off behind this pond and went down a forest road and went off into the bushes and set up camp there. Super great. Highly recommend it. You're saving money. You're allowed to camp in the national forests for free as long as you practice leave no trace. However, I woke up in the morning and wanted to get some sunlight to start my day. So I walked over to the road because that's where the sun was peeking through, the little dirt road, and I started stretching in the sunlight. And I looked in front of me and there was like 4 or 5 deer walking right in front of me. And then I looked up on the hill and there were people with guns and orange hats trying to get the deer. So I'm very, very happy I let myself be known. Do know that if you do this route in October, in late October, that seems to be hunting season. So be careful where you camp. Also, it did make me feel comfortable to have people out in the middle of the forest with me. All along the route, even in the remote sections, there were people in ATVs. There were people camping deep in the forest in their RVs. So in the event that something bad were to happen, any mechanicals, any physical harm, any falls, I felt comfortable knowing that there would be help. And so that was super comforting and something that continued throughout this whole route, at least on the part of the route that I went on. So that was day 1, from St. George to the Dixie National Forest. Woke up in the Dixie National Forest and climbed into Pine Valley. It looked like, in reviewing the route after having been in these places, that there's a forest road 1032. Seems like it could be a good off-highway alternative to get to Pine Valley. I don't remember there being a pretty good shoulder on the highway. And at this point, I was very, very close to being out of water. So I needed to restock quickly. So I climbed into Pine Valley and I resupplied at the Pine Valley store, which is right next to the Brandon Iron Steakhouse. Now, I was hoping the steakhouse was open. They're open they're open Fridays 5 to 9, Saturdays 10 to 3, and 5 to 9. So if you want a nice juicy steak at the end of day 1 or for lunch on day 2, gotta make sure you get there at those times. There's also a campground in Pine Valley at the end of the valley near the canal trail. And I did not go look at those campsites. However, I did do research when I got back home, and it seems like a super nice campsite with facilities, got pit bathrooms and whatnot. So that would also be a really good option to check out. I could have gone to those Pine Valley campgrounds, but sun was setting. I had a Zoom call to go on. I wanted to make sure I had service, and so I stopped, didn't ride at night, and camped in the National Forest before going up to Pine Valley. Pine Valley is a really pretty town. There was fall colors everywhere. Everyone that I interacted with in the town was super nice. In Utah, the people are super great. They just want to help. They want to make sure you're okay. And that just, I don't know, it felt really good to be in an environment like that. So after a resupply in Pine Valley, that store, now I should mention, the store doesn't necessarily have an extensive stock of stuff. It was kind of like it was a small town general store with sodas, bananas, ice cream, and a few other items. But it's not like a small gas station. It's like a mom and pop place. Out of Pine Valley, you take Forest Road 011 out of Pine Valley and through a little town called Pinto. It's got a cool vibe to it. There's probably 6 houses in this valley. And if you explore a little bit, in the area, I took a wrong turn. There's some historical remnants of early Mormon settlers in the valley. So that was cool to stumble upon. And that was Pine Valley and Pinto were some of the first settlements that the Mormons went to in Utah, at least in southern Utah. The Mormon Church in Pine Valley is one of the oldest Mormon churches in the United States. So that's pretty cool. You take Pinto Road to Forest Road 029. And I downloaded the route in the Adventure Cycling Association app. They have an improvised campsite marked on there. And I believe I showed it in one of my videos. But essentially, you're just in an open field. Seems like it would be an okay place to camp. I did do this right after there was videos of a puma or a mountain lion stalking someone in Utah. So I was very aware of looking for prints in the ground. And I didn't have bear spray. I don't know if you necessarily need bear spray, but it's an okay campsite. It's very exposed. There's not much privacy. But on the other side of the route, there looked to be a little bit more forested area, and I'm sure you could find a good campsite in that area. From Forest Route 29, you take that into New Harmony with an epic descent from the eastern Dixie National Forest down into New Haven, which then takes you to Cedar City. And you go north along the west side of Highway 15 for probably about 15 miles. And I got a hotel in Cedar City. No shame. This was night 2 of my trip. And I was thinking about giving up at this point. And I was thinking about giving up because newbie alert. I wore my chamois that I wore on day 1 to bed that night, woke up, didn't change my chamois, and rode day 2 with the same chamois. Big mistake. And that's something I think you just got to learn through experience. So I got a hotel, I ordered pizza, and there was a smoothie place next to the Motel 6 that I got. I also think I bonked. And so I remember not eating that much since really my resupply. I didn't eat from the resupply to Cedar City, which was about 6-7 hours of riding. So definitely bonked. Make sure you eat. So I was still thinking about giving up the next morning, but in the theme of reaching out for help, I reached out to a couple people on warm showers, and this wonderful couple picked me up and took me up the climb from Cedar City to Navajo Lake. Now, this would be a really long climb to ride. I'm sure if you're in shape, it would be just fine. I believe it's like a 3,000 to 5,000 foot climb. I was looking at the elevation maps and was just dreading this part of the route. And since I was going to give up and wanted to head back to St. George, I decided to get a ride up into the eastern part of the Dixie National Forest. And since I also wasn't feeling it, I decided to cut off about 90 miles of the route. So instead of going up the climb and going through the forest to Hatch and then back to Navajo Lake and down, I basically had the couple drop me off at Navajo Lake, which then was just descending all day into Zion National Park. Now, not all day. There were some ups and downs in the second half of that national forest stretch, but the downhill was great. Now, Washboard on this part wasn't necessarily a big problem. What was a big problem was very, very fine, dusty sand. Or I wouldn't call it sand, it was dirt. But it felt like it had the consistency of powdered sugar. And it was really, really deep at times. And that's my only complaint about that descent. I mean, going from Navajo Lake to Zion, I believe I descended 7,800 feet in total that whole day. So that was really, really cool. Again, on this part of the route, there was multiple people throughout the day passing me in their cars or trucks. It wasn't too many. It was probably like 3 or 4 trucks that went by. And there was a motorcycle tourist who was going down the road too and asked if I needed anything, if I needed any help, was kind of probably like, what the heck is this guy doing riding his bike in the middle of this forest? So when I got dropped off at Navajo Lake, or near Navajo Lake, I actually got dropped off at the Duck Creek Visitor Center. I met a guy named Ron, and Ron was a fellow bicycle tourist himself. He was traveling with his wife in his sweet van and teardrop trailer. And he mentioned to me, he said, hey, I'm going to be camping down in Zion tonight. If you meet me down there tonight, that's where you're going to go. I got a cold beer for you. And that was such good motivation to get me through the day and really to continue moving until I got to Zion. I've been to Zion before and I was really excited to get there. But I met Ron, did the 7,000 foot descent. There is an informal campsite in between Navajo Lake and Zion. I would recommend camping here. Do plan for it. There's like this beautiful creek, a huge rock wall, and this beautiful vista. And if I didn't want to go meet Ron, and honestly, if I had an emergency beacon, like a spot locator, I probably would have stayed. But yeah, that informal campsite's pretty cool. I would highly recommend it. And again, the Adventure Cycling Association doesn't have any images of these places up, so I'll see if I can include some in this video. But would highly recommend staying at that informal campsite that is marked in the Adventure Cycling Association app. Getting through the forest, you then get to some housing development northeast of Zion, and it's a pavement descent from there down to the main highway, which then takes you into Zion. I got to Zion around dusk, and in the east entrance, the guard shacks were closed. So I just rolled right through, didn't have to pay. That was great. And this, like, going through Zion from east to west is it's all downhill. And 2, it was in the afternoon. And that was I just remember Zion, like, I said when I was filming myself, I said, this is better than any Disneyland ride, because it just felt so fulfilling to ride through Zion under your own power. I got there under my own power, besides the car going up the hill. I don't know, it just felt so fulfilling and felt really, really good to descend through. Now, in Zion, there are 2 tunnels. One's pretty short, you can ride through, but the second tunnel, which I believe is near the Angel's Landing, this tunnel is like 1.5 miles long, and it's technically illegal to ride your bike through. So you have to get a hitch through the tunnel. Now, I spent a while trying to get a ride through the tunnel. I didn't know whether to like smile with my thumb up or whether to put a mask on with my thumb up. Like, what's more inviting during COVID? People don't want to share their spaces with anyone. And there was 2 girls coming down from the hike, and I kind of just was like, hey, do you have a truck by chance? And they kind of looked at each other and were like, yeah. And I was like, I got to get through that tunnel. Is there any way that I could throw my bike in the back of your truck and you can get me through that tunnel. And they said yes. They were super nice. There was a mountain bike in the back of the truck already, and they were kind of like, yeah, but our cab is full. Like, we've got a bunch of stuff in here. And I was like, that's fine. I'll sit in the back of the truck. That's cool. And so we drove back to the first tunnel while I was sitting in the back of the truck, and then we turned around and went through the 1.5 mile long tunnel. And honestly, being in the back of the truck was better than sitting in the truck. I got to drive through Zion in the back of a truck, just looking around, and that was super cool and a beautiful experience. So they got me through the tunnel and then dropped me off, and I got to descend down the switchbacks in Zion, which was one of the best descent. It was the best descent of my whole life so far, because it was so beautiful. It was sunset. The rocks were starting to glow orange and red, and it was just super, super memorable. Then I rolled into the South campsite and went to Space 13, and I found Ron and his wife, and he gave me the cold beer he promised me, and they fed me. They gave me pasta and salad, and that was just so good, and I was so thankful, and they were such amazing people. I really have so much to thank to them. I said, like, it's really amazing to have to depend on people when you're out bicycle touring or backpacking or walking across America. There's a level of vulnerability that you have, and I think people are scared that people will take advantage of them in that vulnerability. But really, all I've seen and all I've heard from my friends is that people extend themselves to you, and people I know have had nothing but kindness and generosity extended to them. So I just was so thankful for people like Ron and his wife, the people who took me up the climb from Cedar City that I didn't want to do, and everyone who was asking if I needed help. It was just super nice and felt good after a year like 2020. So that was day 3. Day 4, I woke up in Zion, and Ron and his wife left early to go ride their bikes to a trailhead, and they left a pot of water for me to boil. They left their instant coffees out, some teas, milk, little milk packets, and I was so thankful. They're so beautiful. I had warm coffee, which was really great. And then I rode out of Zion, and again, didn't know what I was in for. When you exit Zion, you turn on Smithsonian Butte Road and cut through the mountains over towards Apple Valley. Now, I started this climb up this dirt road, and there was a trail runner going past me, and he said, "Do you know where you're going?" He said, "The locals call this place Crybaby Hill." And I was like, yeah, well, I got to get through. And I walked my bike up this hill. It was super chunky, very rocky, very steep, and it was very hot. I would wake up early from Zion out. I would wake up early and do this climb before the sun comes up, really, or right as it's coming up. It would be shaded in the morning. Also, once you get up the hill towards the top, there would be a lot of places to camp. I saw a few vans parked up there. So if you weren't able to get a campsite in Zion, highly recommend going up Smithsonian Butte Road and get some camping in up there. I continued on through. Once you get up to the top of the hill, and there's just straightaway to the highway in Apple Valley. Lots of washboard there. That was not too fun. And that highway is super sketchy. There's no shoulder. Luckily, they were doing construction, so they were blocking traffic, one way. And so I would kind of wait for traffic to stop in the direction I was going and would just hammer down. And then when there would be more semis and RVs and trailers passing me, I'd pull off and wait and then go when traffic stopped. There's a Chevron station there. Did another resupply. And then, so that was Highway 59. And getting off of Highway 59 on what would be the southeastern side of Highway 59, going into Hurricane, was like so welcomed. I was so thankful to get off that highway. It was a really interesting section of the ride. On the road that you go down, there was like sidewalks paved or like driveways, which was super interesting. I could definitely see the area expanding and this area turning into a housing tract eventually. But very desolate, very remote. There was a couple of like abandoned houses. Just kind of another remote stretch of road off of Highway 59 going towards Hurricane. Once I got to Hurricane, I got some barbecue, and before I got the barbecue, I was sitting at a church thinking about the Sand Hollow section of the route, and it was getting late in the day. I needed to eat, and I was just going to go for it, but learning from my day 2 experience, I knew I needed to eat. I knew I couldn't just eat another Cliff Bar and keep going. I needed some serious calories. So I decided to go to a barbecue and continued on Highway 9 towards St. George. If you're going to do this diversion as well, I highly suggest you turn on Telegraph Street, and there's a landfill road that there's the end of a bike path at. So you go up towards the landfill, down a dirt road, and then there's a bike path in a canyon. Highly recommend this bike path. So glad I found it. Don't know how, or I know how I did. I went on all trails and looked for where there would be trails. But this started the best 20 miles of bike path I have ever been on. St. George really did their urban planning right when considering outdoor recreation and bike riding. I wanted to move to St. George just because of these bike paths. They were so good and so fun. So going down these bike paths was super fun. And I took that bike path all the way down to St. George. And that was my ride. So there's 2 diversions that I took in this route. I did not go from Hatch, or I did not go to Hatch. I cut that part off. I think that was about 90 miles. And I cut off the part that goes around Sand Hollow. And that probably cut off 30 miles. So things that I learned are eat all the time while you're bike packing or bike touring. I learned to change your underwear. Seems pretty simple. I learned that people aren't as nefarious as you think they are. People want to help. People want to make sure you're okay. This route's probably not that good for a first-time bike packer or bike tourist. But if you're down for a challenge, then I highly recommend it. I mean, I recommend this route. I just don't recommend it for your first time. Or if you want to introduce someone to bike packing, choose a different route. They might end up hating it after this. If they're not in shape and not an avid cyclist. I read online people doing this in 4 to 5 days, or doing it in 4 days. And those people are crazy. I don't know how they do it. But if you want to do this route, if you're thinking about it, leave some comments below. I would love to be a resource and share any information that I know having done the route, I would love to help. It's a beautiful route. I did it towards the end of October. Would highly recommend doing it around that time. And yeah, I think that's about it. I wanted to follow up my 3-part series on the route with this video, just kind of talking more for the people who are interested in the route, who want to find more information on it. So if you have any questions about any section or how to plan, do let me know. I feel like I should mention my bike too. I wouldn't do this on anything less than a gravel bike. I would have tires over 38 millimeters and suspension if that's a choice. My arms and my hands definitely hurt at times. Kind of rocky on some of the forest roads, the washboard, but yeah, I did it on 2021 Specialized Diverge Sport Carbon. I had a Relevate Designs tent on the front, 2 fork-mounted 3-liter bags with food in one, general supplies in the other. I had a frame bag and a seat pack, and that had everything that I need. I actually have a video about my bike packing setup. I'll link it up here, and you can check that out. That is pretty much the kit that I took on this ride. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, I hope I could give you an ounce of information more than what I feel like I had going into this ride. I would highly recommend this ride. It's a very rewarding ride. I would love to go back and do the sections that I negated to do in the future. I really look forward to doing that. And yeah, throw yourself into the fire. That's the way I've always done things, is just kind of go for it and don't think about it. Yeah. So I hope you got some value out of me discussing this. And again, if you have any questions, leave them down below. I would love to help, and I would love to see more people riding this route in the next couple years. Thanks for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Hope this helped you out. There's one thing I love to say around here, and that is never stop chasing your curiosity. Get out there and ride, no matter your size. Riding your bike will always make you feel good. I'm preaching to the choir. If you're watching this, you're considering this route, and you ride your bike a lot. So anyway, I'll see you on the next one.